All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to BioTouch. This is our January workshop where we'll be addressing alcohol addiction. My name is Sherilyn. I'm so glad to see you all here and online. Tonight, our speaker is Liana Joy Condello, and she is a counselor here in Tucson for help people with drug and alcohol addictions and the trauma that goes with. So I'm going to, at this point, turn it over to Liana.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Liana Joy Condello, and I am what I like to refer to as a substance misuse therapist. That's not the label that I get along with my license. However, I believe there can be a lot more misuse, that there's a whole spectrum, a continuum levels of use that go along with substances. This is my 30th year in practice, and this is my third state that I've worked in America. I'm from Canada originally. And I also specialize and I'm certified in trauma. And the reason why that's so important and so impactful for the people that I see and for people that every one of us in this room know, we know how far and deep this afflicts humanity all over the world. We have to look at a source of why. And I think that the science and the evidence has moved in the last decade toward understanding how trauma feeds into the misuse of substances. Alcohol is the #1 most used and misused substance that we have in our country. We're not talking about it a lot. It's legal. We're talking a lot about the opioid crisis, but right fiercely behind that is the methamphetamine crisis. So coupled all together, we can look at substance misuse pretty much as a polysubstance problem. There are people that just use or misuse alcohol, but more and more we're seeing people that use multiple substances to help them survive. So that's what takes me into the whole trauma concept. What is trauma? For those of you that are here in person in the room, I've given you a one-page, 10-question little survey, so to speak. It's called the ACEs. I don't know how many of you have heard about the ACEs, adverse childhood events. This is very private information. It's personal. But if you can go through it and score it, even if in your mind, you can see that many of us have been exposed to extreme stressors and traumatized in a way just by being human and living on this earth. So the gentleman that developed this is now very elderly, and the ACEs was something that he started working with more extensively in the 70s and 80s, 1970s and 1980s. And when asked recently in the last few years how he felt about his work and why this was so significant for substance use disorders and mental illness, he said, well, I guess it's just a bunch of bad parenting, which is really, really interesting, because none of us have children or have been raised with instructions. Everybody sort of does it the best they can for where they're at. And usually that, what's affiliated with that is complex trauma, intergenerational trauma, intercellular trauma, and they're finding the science now that trauma is passed on genetically through the mother in utero, and then it becomes part of your DNA. It's really, really, really very fascinating. So why is this really related to what I do and what you guys can do as practitioners of BioTouch? Well, I'm a very holistic practitioner. I actually do auricular detox, which are 5 specific points in your ears that help to relieve withdrawal, anxiety, depression. It helps with sleep. It's unbelievable. And that's also through the sense of touch and through touching the body, as well as breathing and dietary supplements are very important. I'm not a nutritionist, but I do refer people out to make sure that they're well balanced. what we put in totally affects our gut, which is our first brain, which goes up into our second brain, which is the one that we know, which is where the trauma lies. Not only is it cellular in our body, so that takes us a little bit into why people misuse substances. What happens? What happens when someone's 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, the typical age range of when children experiment with substances? And what makes the difference between someone who starts throwing up and has a party and says, oh my God, I'm never going to do that again. That's just, I don't know why I did that. And the other young person who says, I finally felt normal. And for the first time in my life, I felt accepted and I loved it. And then that's the beginning of their disorder. Well, there are many, many factors that go into that, but my belief is that the majority of what drives that person to change the wiring in their brain, because our brains are neuroplastic, which means they're pliable. And the wiring in our brain is such that we have, what I'd like to break it down to 4 major components that affect how we behave and why we do what we do. We have the brainstem, which attaches your head to your neck, and that's the first brain, the primal brain. That's what we looked like when we were cavemen. That's the brain, the little one that holds our fight, flight, freeze, or fawn now is a new one where we are sort of always trying to please people so we avoid any drama. But that is sort of wired up and affects a couple of areas in our brain. One is the amygdala, which is like the little ground squirrel jumping up and down, always asking us, are we safe? Are we safe? Is it okay? And we are wired as human beings genetically and in our brain to survive. And so that's the area, the amygdala is the one that's triggered, that tells us, is this okay? Are we okay? The other parts of the brain that are very important with substance misuse, which I believe is a disease of the brain and the gut, are our frontal lobe, which is really important because so many people have injuries. Sports, car accidents, domestic violence, accidents. And we used to think of those as acute injuries, which means just temporary, they heal and they go away. What science tells us now is that they're chronic long-term injuries. So if you've ever had a head injury and you've blacked out or you've passed out, that injury is forever. And this part of the brain, why it's important, this part of the head, is because that's where our impulse control center is. And so you can imagine if all these things start stacking up, you've had all sorts of stressors and trauma. Your mother had stressors and trauma, whatever that means, right? For one person, it could be something rape or violence, and for another person, it could be bullying and malnutrition and neglect. So we don't really get to judge or define that. That's a person's personal journey, and it's how they respond to it, not what we think they should, how we think they should respond. So there's that part. There's the fight, or freeze. Then there's, of course, the reward center in our brain, which can get pinged and activated by lots of stuff. Gambling, shopping, eating great food, using substances, sex, relationships. A lot of things can ping that. And that can get out of whack with people that have this substance misuse disorder or this disease process. The other 2 parts of the brain that I'm going to talk about very briefly that are critical to this is the right brain and the left brain. It's much more complicated than this, but I'm just sort of breaking it down so that it makes sense. The right part of the brain is the part of the brain where we're very creative and very emotional, and all of our feelings. And it also has little tiny drawers in there that remember and store all the files in our computer up here of every bad thing that has ever happened to us. It's all our negative memories and experiences. We have the right and the left part of the brain, which is our logic, problem solving, common sense, little drawers in there. Also in those little drawers on the left side are all of our positive, loving, wonderful memories. So you've got that on the logical side, and you've got all that stuff on the right side. You've got maybe right top frontal lobe stuff happening, and then you've got your fight, flight, or freeze. Now let me put this all together, why this matters, and why trauma is woven into all of this. Well, when you start to misuse a substance, because it makes you feel normal and good, and then you get more and more needy, and you need it because it's just a relief. Your right brain and your left brain literally unplug. So it's like you're typing an email and you want to send it, but your modem's not turned on. Keep hitting send, send, send. There's just nothing there. It doesn't work. Our brains are machines and it doesn't work. So if your left brain is unplugged from your right brain and you're using, it just so happens that science has now taught us that you're stuck in the right side of your brain. What's over there? Emotions, sadness, darkness, and you're also communicating only with the brainstem. Which means what? Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So if you're someone that fights, you're going to get pretty feisty. If you freeze, you're going to just shut down. Or you're going to run away from it, or you're going to fawn and become very overly dependent on other people to a fault, where you might even harm yourself because you don't want anything to come at you. So imagine someone that's actively using alcohol and they just can't stop because it makes them feel normal. And then their brain unplugs. And then they're on that side. And then they're in their stem brain, which is telling them, if you don't have that drink, you're going to die. You're not going to survive. Then all of a sudden you get this complex situation with a human being that believes and behaves in a way that if they don't get that fix, they are not going to survive. And they will do anything to survive, because guess what? We are born and wired to survive. That's our entire species and our entire being. So you can see how it's very, very complicated. So what do we do? My belief as a therapist is that we have to calm down the body to a point where there's a little bit of reconnection. That those two main parts of the brain have to be talking to one another. Otherwise, talk therapy won't absorb. Because guess what? When they're unplugged, there's no logic. Limited logic. So you can say, give someone a worksheet, think about your problems, think about this. Okay. And they can go through the motions, but it doesn't really internalize. Which I think is why AA has been so powerful over the years. If people relate to that, it gives the entire community the sense of belonging, and it sort of helps to reconnect and rewire the neuroplasticity in the brain to give people what they need to give them a chance to heal and recover. But it's not for everyone. So we can use other techniques. We can use breathing and meditation and yoga and tapping, EFT tapping, auricular acupuncture, diet. We can use all these other things in hopes to start to heal the body. Because after all, this is a disease process with tons of stigma over it. People are afraid of people with full-blown addictions. People get exasperated because their behaviors are, socially unacceptable. You can't trust them. They sometimes will not tell the truth and manipulate and lie because they're trying to survive. So I think that with understanding this in a nutshell, puts us in a position of more compassion, and that can help us understand, not without boundaries. We have to have boundaries and sort of keep ourselves sane, but please help us understand the depth of what is going on with these humans that we love or care for that are afflicted with this disease process, this disease of the brain. So at that, I think that whatever we can do to calm the body and reconnect the left and the right brain, then we can start to talk and process about what happened to you. Let's take a look at, your oldest memory. Not to focus necessarily on opening up that can of worms, but more to get a history for people and to help them understand how they behaved and why they are where they are, and what they have done to survive, what is their pattern. And then we can start looking at unpacking how they can change their behaviors to better support a lifestyle of recovery or harm reduction at least. If they're injecting, maybe we can get them just to a couple of drinks and a cigarette. Whatever it takes to help them survive. It's very, very complex. So I believe that you guys practicing any type of touch or any sort of human connection is very healing. And I think that it would be a wonderful partnership with people who have substance use disorders, whether it's alcohol or meth, sugar, it doesn't really matter what the fix is, pinging that reward center. It's sort of whole mind, whole body, whole spirit to look at without stigma, without judgment, to help these people get to where they need to be. Because people are just dying. And in Pima County alone, we're losing 9 people a day to opioid overdose. And that's just that one substance, without looking at everything else. And, you know, a death certificate isn't going to say someone died of alcoholism. It's going to say cirrhosis of the liver or heart attack or pancreatitis. And so I don't know if we really know the true numbers. But what I do know is as many hours as the universe gives me on this earth, I would be full all the time if I never stopped around the clock trying to help people. So the more we can talk about it with one another and normalize the disease model by taking away the stigma and the shame associated with it, I think the better chance we have to help people get to where they need to be to have some kind of joy in life. Not always, but sometimes. Many of my clients, when they come to me, can't identify anything that gives them joy. That's one of my first questions. What brings you joy? And some of them just say nothing. Many of them say nothing. There's nothing. Not one thing, not your dog, not your partner, not a good meal, nothing brings them joy, not the sun on their face. So it's a matter of getting them reconnected and back to feeling some sense of hope. Because people with this disease are very hopeless. So that's my message. And if you have any questions, I totally encourage you to copy the ACEs and pass it around and look it up online and see what is it, because it's the beginning of a discussion. And when I took it, I only heard about it. I've been a therapist for many, many years, about 6 or 7 years ago. And I took it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I scored a 9 out of 10. How am I surviving? No wonder I did all those things. No wonder I did all those things as a way to just keep going. So I think it's important to have a place to start to get a little bit of insight. We all know somebody. We all do. So thank you for having me. If there's any questions I'd love to answer. Yes.
Kind of a specific question on this auricular
Auricular acupuncture.
There you go. The spot on your ear to help you sleep?
There's 5 spots.
Oh my gosh.
There's 5 points in the ear, and this is all evidence-based, and it's a science practice. And those of us who do this we have clinical supervision with full-blown acupuncturists, so it's highly regulated. We're all certified and trained in it, and it's our certifications, they're not licenses, but our certifications are managed by the Arizona Board of Acupuncturists, so it's a very serious but powerful technique. And the most powerful point of what they do in Norway, they have these great things that are starting to pop up now in the United States and even here in Arizona, are AcuDetox cafes. You go have a coffee, you can get a treatment. Is the Shenmen, which is the point right in the top middle of your ear, and that is one of the most powerful points. There's dozens of points in your ear, so even if you're off a little bit, it certainly can't harm you. But that is the greatest point for anxiety, and it does help sleep. In my practice, I teach people how to, it's called seeding. They get these tiny little seeds on little sticky band-aids, and how to do it to themselves, because it's completely, you're not using needles, there's no blood, there's not all these regulations over infection control. And they can just get a little mirror, and I give them a chart, and they can do it on themselves. And so many people report back with a tremendous sense of relief. It's not placebo effect, but even if it was, if it works, who cares? It is proven, but I'm not attached to any labels. So some people say it doesn't work. Some people say it hurts. Your ears get bright red. They're so sensitive because it opens up the blood flow and the energy flow. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Questions, Amy?
Any other ways that this can help you with what you're doing? Yes?
Liana, in your talk about alcohol misuse, it seems, I get the impression that it's generic to all any sort of substance misuse. It's like you are differentiating. So Is that correct?
Well, I actually don't think there's a difference, whether it's alcohol or meth or opioids or prescription pills. I feel that it's on a continuum. The how it affects your life and how we diagnose and treat it, it's on a continuum, like every other behavioral health issue we have, whether it's depression or anxiety or mood, or even schizophrenia. It's on a continuum of, lesser symptoms all the way up to it's going to kill you. Your psychosis is so incapacitating, right?
What the substance is,
With the substance,
the degree of how much you're misuse are the reason behind it.
Right.
But
So
what substance is
yeah, because we only have one reward center. And we only have one amygdala, we only have one ground squirrel jumping up and down, are you safe, are you safe? And those people that are misusing and become full-blown dependent on whatever it is. But you can have a dependence on a medication, let's say chronic pain meds, which has really been all the rage and the focus in this country for the last few years. Is it, have we overprescribed pain meds? Is this problem, 92% of all opioids created on earth are consumed by Americans. That's a big number, huh? So we have to take a look at our prescribing practices, we don't really want to do the blame game at this point because it's not really very healing for anybody, but how do we better regulate those people that, let's say, have chronic injuries, multiple surgeries, very serious accidents, they have legs cut off, or they have multiple back surgeries. They may very well be dependent on their pain med, but it doesn't mean they're abusing or misusing it. So, the conversation, the pendulum that we're having nationwide over substance misuse is very complex. I, for one, believe that you could be dependent on something for your survival to help you lead a life without misusing it or being an addict. It's very, very different. But I don't rule the world and I don't make the rules, so I just try to muddle through it the best like all other professionals.
You were talking about the disconnect, right brain, left brain. That sounds a lot like what I've been hearing about post-traumatic stress syndrome. Am I correct in thinking that?
Well, post-traumatic stress syndrome is on the trauma spectrum. And there's very effective treatments, EMDR, rapid eye movement treatments for trauma that is in the recent past. I don't know, I can say something dramatic like a plane crash or a home invasion or an accident or grief and loss, things that really traumatize someone. But if you're going to go way back to childhood, it's not a very effective treatment for that. But sure enough, that disconnect happens, and that's why that's why I'm trauma certified, because I believe it's totally connected, as do many others, with why people misuse substances. I believe it's the heart of most, not all, but most.
I've had 3 alcoholics in my family, not family, 3 all passed away. I have 1 now living with me, not drinking. But you said something that's very interesting, that in all my life living for so many years with the alcoholics, this one here has an addiction to chocolate chip cookies. So do you see a lot of alcoholics coming in with an addiction, like you said, sweets or whatever?
I'm not.
Do they talk about it to you?
They do and they don't, right? So what people choose to share is all based on trust and length of time. But it's a very interesting question because years and years ago, before I was licensed, I was working with a psychiatrist from Madrid, Spain, in northern Colorado. And one of his psychiatry partners was an acupuncturist who studied in China. He was a child psychiatrist. And they both worked at this treatment center in Minnesota back then, just for alcoholism. And part of the treatment was sugar addiction. Because they had this science that, when alcohol breaks down in your body, it's pure sugar. And so to help them safely detox off of the alcohol, they would give them healthy sugars, fruit sugars. And so that was the first time I heard of that, about 25 years ago. And I was like, why would you give so much sugar? And so there is a connection for sure. There is, yeah. You can look up the nutrition of alcoholism or the neurobiology of addiction, and there's all sorts of, Peter Levine is really big, one of the four grandfathers of this kind of research. And he's very, very famous.
When I talked to him regarding it also, he is very negative towards towards me, like saying, just leave me alone because this is helping me survive.
Eat that cookie.
Mm-hmm.
Harm reduction. What's worth for him? A drink or a cookie? Give him a cookie.
Perfect.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Once again, thanks.
Sure.
It's great information that just makes it more, drills it in on why I do biotech.
Start the conversation, right?
Yeah. And we appreciate the professionals that we have coming in to talk about these different health conditions. And thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure meeting you all.
Yeah. So you're all here to learn about biotech. And let's see, you've never done it. Yeah. You've never done it.
Thank
you. Yeah. How did you hear about it?
Had a sort of sample treatment from Michelle.
Oh, okay.
I was impressed about the booklet and with the DVD.
Right.
I watched the DVD a little bit and I didn't figure what to do with it.
Okay, well here you are. We're going to figure out what to do with it, and we're going to share how to now address alcohol addiction. So one of the, this is our entire name. Okay, what you have, did you get the?
I didn't bring it with me.
No.
I thought you did.
Yeah, give him a workbook, and then give me a workbook too, so I know what we're doing. Oh, yeah, this, so I'll take this one. No, you can keep that one, I'll take this one. Okay. So this workbook that you have is just a few sets of points based on our entire manual, okay? And what we found was that people really wanted to just learn about a specific condition and what few sets of points could be used to address that condition. And what Liana just told us, it just blows me away every time. When she starts talking about the brain, and we've had presentations on trauma and opiate addiction, and it always goes back to this one set that we have, which is the head set. And if nothing else, what BioTouch will do, and we've got the research on that one too. And in this class, we don't go into a lot of details about the technique, but it is just lightly touching. It's about taking these two fingers and lightly touching on the skin. So why don't you just reach over and touch somebody so you get a sense. Sure, let's get over here. Thank you.
Jeremy?
Yeah.
So it's just,
Yeah.
just with those two.
So it's just a light touch on the skin. We hold all the points for 6-8 seconds. Jeremy, you're a massage therapist, yeah? Yeah, we have a couple of massage therapists here. And what I did want to show you is, so we did some major research with Dr. Stevenson. We'll talk more about that in the full class. But the one thing that we did learn from Dr. Stevenson's research was her stress chart. And the stress chart showed all these stresses in our life. So that ACER questionnaire is part of these stressors. But also in here is DNA. She talked about how it's generational. It's like I'm a generation from Holocaust survivors. And so that sort of is in my stressors and in my trauma. And so what we're finding is all these stressors, DNA, and then even the abuse, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, are things that just accelerate our stressors and create accelerated aging, and then creates our dementia, cardiovascular disease, obesity. I mean, it goes on and on, the diseases we get from all those stressors, especially if we use drugs to sort of knock out that I should be taking care of myself. Another interesting thing, I was at a psychiatric conference and we were doing BioTouch just for a little table we had out there. And there's this guy talking about mind-body connection. And he said that he didn't just believe in the spiritual aspect, it had to be scientific, and so he did a lot of research. And he found that whenever we have a wow experience in our life, changes happen in the deepest seat of consciousness that we're not maybe even aware of, and then it percolates up and the body starts to follow. And we start changing the way we relate to our body. But it was all from a wow experience. And he actually told all those participants in his presentation to go out and have those people do that touch stuff on them. And what was interesting was we always have that experience with people when you do even just the headset, just the greeting in the headset, people will sort of open their eyes and go, wow. And it doesn't matter if they're a high school kid or if we're doing to them on Pima Street or in the mall. It doesn't even have to be a quiet place with tingling cymbals and whale music and incense kind of thing. It could be anywhere. And people will get that wow experience. So something's happening with something as simple as biotouch. Biotouch is one person touching another on the skin, which is why we're trying to get it into the professional field, massage therapists, doulas, midwives, nurses, let alone just trying to get it into families. You know, trying to get, as Donna was talking about there, if our family members have different addictions, what's something that we can simply do without having to analyze them or have them feel like they're wrong or that we're even trying to fix them? I mean, the last thing you want to do with somebody who's an addict is try to fix them. You know, or somebody who's angry, try to get them to calm down. It's like, forget it. But biotouch is something you can do without trying to project how they should be. It's just a way for us to help in usually a helpless situation. And it's just about, what we say, it's just about a loving touch. There's no mind involved with this. It's not about projecting. It's not about centering yourselves. It's not about levels of healers. The nice thing that we have with biotouch is there's no levels. You'll all be 100% effective tonight, the very first time, even compared to Liana, who's been doing it for over 30 years. The short story is I met the man who created the technique. If you want the long story, then you come to the class on the weekend, or you can read about it in the book, Biotouch Healing with the Power in Our Fingertips, which was an interview of me and my life in relation to the woman who wrote the book, who was a certified practitioner. So I met the man who created the technique, who was basically a mining engineer in Colorado. And he was a big burly guy, he was a chain smoker, he was a chain coffee drinker. I met him in a town of 900 people in Colorado, and I was the town hippie. And I had a back problem, and he worked on me, and my back pain went away after 2 sessions. And then the whole body started to align itself. And he came up with the points in an emergency. The lady was hemorrhaging, having a miscarriage, and he spontaneously said, I think I can help. And he did these points, and bingo, the woman stopped hemorrhaging and carried the baby full term. So the story of biotouch is, as Gary Schwartz said, it's almost silly. It's a silly presentation of healing work because it's so simple. You know, and to apply it into a massage therapy or an acupuncture session or any kind of physical therapy or trauma work is just awesome because it doesn't have to be done by professionals, or the professionals can pass it on to the family members. So if you're working with, if you're working with somebody that has trauma or alcohol addiction, it's easy to give it to a spouse or somebody in the family and just go, well, here, just do the greeting and just do the headset. And that would only take you not even 2 to 3 minutes. And we're not talking about a huge amount of time here. The longest part of the time is just teaching you how to do that. But we're not talking about, and even huge consistency, like doesn't have to be done every day or it has to be done 3 times a day, like taking a pain pill. The interesting thing about biotouch in relation to pain medication is when the doctor says take the pain medication and in 4 hours take another one. So you take the pain medication and the pain goes away, and then 4 hours later the pain comes back and you go, oh, doctor said take another medication, so I better pop another pill. Well, with something like biotouch, which is so simple, the pain can go away immediately because, as Liana was saying, if biotouch does nothing else, it relaxes us in our body, in our self-awareness of our body. It says everything's okay for a moment. And when you get in that state, when the brain and all its connections, and I don't understand it as much as she does, makes those connections, which is then directly related to the body, which also has brain cells. I mean, your little toe, they find out, has gray matter. So we're in constant communication. BioTouch sort of gives everything the opportunity to stop. But then what's going to happen? Well, a few hours later, it's going to get all jiggled up again. Well, what we usually say with something so simple as, well, that didn't work. And we don't do it again. So BioTouch is about consistency, too. This is not a slap on the forehead, fall over, and you wake up healed. Okay? It's about getting this into the family structure so people will do it to help their family and their friends with different kinds of conditions. The condition we're going to deal with today is alcohol addiction. Or as Liana was saying, any addiction. It could be sugar. You know, it could be love addiction. You know, that's a big thing. Any questions so far? Okay. So this is the whole manual. This manual comes with a DVD, so you can see it when you leave here. What you'll get here is we're going to just practice the points. You'll also get a link at the end of the class that you can download this on ebook version of this, and that will have links to the video. So it's easy to learn it. It's easy to remember how to do it. Those people who are members in the organization, we have about 36 of these workbooks. We've got about 36 classes. And it's easy to just download, oh, I want to work on trauma. Oh, I download the trauma workbook and it shows me what to do. So, you know, over the years we'll have hundreds of these little workbooks that all come from this thing. This is all you need. And that's the whole system. There's only 17 sets of points. And they're all done as you touch, very lightly on the skin of another human being. It's not necessarily a self-healing technique, okay? Because the most effective, consistent way is for one person to touch another on the skin. and well, we should that later too. Any questions so far about BioTouch? Yes.
I have a burning question.
Burning.
Because when I first started talking with my neighbor about this, she kind of cautioned me that there was a time when she was being tutored into doing massage. And her mentor, whatever, had her come over and work on a patient recipient of hers. And then afterwards have her just sit down and have a cup of tea, whatever. Explained that that recipient was an addict of some sort, whatever. But my friend who was being mentored after she had worked on the recipient, she said, I don't do drugs, never did drugs, but she said, I'm sitting there and I'm getting heady, you know, feeling the dizzy, heady, whatever kind of stuff. And her massage mentor cautioned her that that could happen, that when you're working on another person, that the headiness or whatever comes back to them.
Right.
Anyway, so my friend said, is that going to happen? You're going to be working on all these people, and are you going to be, you know,
Right.
I don't know.
So,
what's your experience with that?
So
How do you deal with it?
here's my take on that, which doesn't usually get a good reception. I don't really believe you can get people stuck because there's only our own stuff. And what I found with BioTouch is there must be something in it. And I think it's just because we say it's about love. So we don't have any rules. It's about just touch. It's not, you don't even have to have an intent to do BioTouch. You know, a lot of healing techniques you have to analyze and then, you know, protect yourself and all those things. With BioTouch, it's just reaching out and touching lovingly another human being. At that point, just by doing that greeting, what I've seen was, in a sense, there's this protection. We're all healing together. And I always really liked the story of this woman who talked about getting people stuck. And she said, you know, when you go to a movie and you get angry, or you start crying, or you laugh, the movie didn't do that to you. You didn't pick that up from the movie. The movie triggered in you laughter or sorrow or pain. Because some people get it and some don't. So it's triggering in people an emotion they have in themselves. I really feel if people have those experiences, it's really about we're being triggered to wake up to our own self-awareness. There's something in us we need to wake up to. And BioTouch really is about self-awareness. Not just self-awareness for the recipient, but self-awareness for me as a practitioner. That the healing is happening for me and you. So how can I get your stuff? Because you're helping me heal and I'm helping you heal, so whatever comes up is what we both needed to learn. So if I really could get people stuff, I'd be dead by now. Because I've worked on a lot of sick people. A lot of sick people. Okay. Now, while I'm here, I don't seem to get sick. If I go into the mall and I'm around a bunch of people coughing and sneezing, I'll probably get the flu. You know? But I don't seem to get it here, and there's a lot of sick people coming here with all kinds of problems. You know, all kinds of pain, all kinds of trauma. You know, and if I had to put and if you think about it, if I have to put a barrier around myself, where's the love there? If I put a shield between me and you, now me and you are separate. And that's not healing. There's no healing in that. And so BioTouch is about meeting people at that point one that you're going to learn, which is the most powerful point in the body, that solar plexus. And that's the first place that we touch. We just had a lady come in today and said, oh, no, this is a very ancient healing technique. And we said, well, we've been told it started 60,000 years ago in Egypt, and we've seen carvings that show the exact points that we do. She goes, oh, no, it's way beyond that. Okay, I don't know. I don't think I was around 60,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago, even though I'm told, oh, yes, I was. But what do I know? You know, I know I'm in this life. I'm trying to do the best I can. And I just want to pass on a gift that was given to me to give back to humanity. And when I give it to you, as I can give to anybody on the street, everyone can do BioTouch. They don't have to believe in it. They don't have to think about it. They don't have to worry about getting people's stuff. If you just reach out and touch another human being, healing will begin. That I know to be true, having done this over 30 years. That is true. Healing will begin by just doing this stuff. It's just that simple. Then you can go home and have some beer. That's what it's all about. Any other questions? That's a good question. I like that question. Okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to show you the points, and then we're going to practice a little bit on how to do that. So we're going to bring in our little mannequin here. And where should we get you? And if you just turn to the greeting, we'll start right with that from Sharon.
All right, so as Paul was saying, we'll start with greeting point one. With the greeting. And this, you do the greeting before you do any BioTouch. It is the key. We compare it to like the battery that starts the car. The key alerts the body to the healing process. So before you do BioTouch in any form, you do the greeting first. And this is the only set of points that you use with just one hand. And you use your dominant hand. So if you're left-handed, left, right, if you're ambidextrous, pick one. And then use it through the whole set. So point one is in using these two fingers. You're going to find that soft spot just below the breastbone. Right? And you're going to hold for 6 to 8 seconds with your dominant hand. That is greeting point one. Greeting point two is going to be 1 inch to 1.5 inches to the left of the big bone. So you find the big bone, go to 1 inch to 1.5 inches to the left, and hold for 6 to 8 seconds. And that is point two of the greeting. And again, this is the only set where you use just one hand and you use your dominant hand. And if you have a client and you have to leave the room in the middle of the biotouch session. You re-enter the room, do the greeting again, and then just begin where you left off. All right, any questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, then the next one is metabolism, which these aren't necessarily in the order you do. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the metabolism helps the body get rid of what it doesn't need and assimilate what it needs. So even when Liana was talking about the sugar addictions and getting the body to assimilate or worry about a blood sugar situation, that is what metabolism can address. And so we have two steps. One, you'll see those points in front of the neck, okay, and that's what we call a matching fire, where you're doing the same point on either side of the body, okay? And so points 1 and 1 are just above the collarbone, and you're in front of that large muscle. 2 and 2 is halfway up the neck in front of that large muscle. And then 3 and 3 is to the top of the neck and still in front of that large muscle. All the points are held for 6 to 8 seconds. Okay? You can repeat these if you want. Now we're looking for step 2. Step 2, you're looking for that X. A lot of times there's an X in the book. That means that point is what we call a hold point. It means that point's going to stay stationary while the other hand touches a series of numbers, and you'll notice the 1 through 4 on the back. So we're going to hold the X on the front of the body, and that point can be found by imagining a line where the nipple would be on a youth and just 1 to 2 inches to the left of the breastbone. Okay? That's the hold point, while you do a series of points on the back. And these points are basically, you're going to stay below the shoulder blade and above the hips. Point 1, so there's that little, the dotted line is where that bottom rib comes into the spinal column. If you know anatomy, it's at T12. Okay, which can also be found straight through from that greeting point 1 that you did. Okay, that's going to be the reference point. And point 1 is 1 to 2 inches above that on the left spine muscle. Point 2 is directly across from that on the right spine muscle. Point 3 is going to drop 2 to 3 inches below that breakover. Stay on that left spine muscle. And then point 4 is on the left spine muscle, and that's specifically for blood sugar situations. So especially for Donna's son, we would really do that, because he probably got some blood sugar stuff going on. Okay? And again, if you do the front twice, you can do the back twice. Very simple set of points. And again, we're going to be practicing. Any questions with that? Now, one of the things we make sure people understand, especially as we do the next one, Cheryl will do that, is we don't recommend or diagnose anything. So, like, we don't tell people drink water, we don't tell people go home and rest, or we don't tell people to be a vegetarian or do a keto diet or a taco diet or this stuff. What we do is we do the points and then let people figure it out for themselves. There's more than enough information out there where we don't need to get involved in making recommendations for diet or supplements or things like that. Okay?
What's next?
Oh, you want me to read it?
What are we doing?
Poison.
Yes, that's me. All right, the poison set can be used to address any poisonous reaction the body can produce, whether it's from chemicals, food, pollutants, just whatever our body might react to. So the hold for the poison set is going to be the same as greeting point 1, and that soft fleshy area just below the breastbone. You're going to hold 2 fingers stationary at that point. That is your X. Then there's two points in the poison set. Point 1 is, and you're working on the right side of the neck. It's going to be at the base of the large muscle on the right side of the neck, slightly above and behind metabolism point 1. You hold for 6 to 8 seconds. Point 2 is going to be at the top of that large muscle, under the jaw. Again, hold for 6 to 8 seconds. And then repeat. And you can do that as many times as you deem necessary. Just make sure you hold each point for 6 to 8 and go back and forth. Point 1 is the base of the large muscle, slightly above and beyond. Metabolism point 1, which is there. And then point 2, the top of that large muscle, below the jawline, by that large muscle.
When you say repeat, just have a feel for that.
You mean how many times you repeat? Yeah, it's up to you and also to your client or your recipient. If it's something they're really suffering from, then you can do as many times as you feel necessary. There's no standard number of times. You do it once, do it twice, and then that's the poison set. Okay?
So the next is stress.
There you go. That's it. You got it.
It was a lot easier when we didn't wear the standing suit. But it does help show where the points are. So the next set is the stress. Now, if all you did was the greeting and the stress just to help somebody relax, that would be good. Okay? And that's a real simple set. Again, that whole point, that X, is at that greeting point 1. We use that a lot. And now we're going to do 2 points. You'll see from the where the nipple would be on a youth to that notch. There's an imaginary line there, that dotted line. And the first third is point 1. And the second third is point 2. And you can just repeatedly do that if you want. Again, as many times as you want, or many times you can do that and the person will sigh. They'll just go, you know, it's really quite interesting. Or you can also do that if you're like in a crisis situation, someone's just freaking out with some trauma experience, and you can do that until you can figure out what to do next. So it might be doing the stress for your own relaxation until you can figure out what you want to do next. So again, it's just 6 to 8 seconds and then 6 just back and forth.
So, would you, as the practitioner, do a deep sigh as well?
Sometimes. It's not like you're forcing it. Sometimes it happens. I end up sighing a lot when I'm working with people.
I mean, because it's kind of like a yawn. If you yawn, the other person will yawn. You know, it kind of goes back and forth.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something you force to do. Like, I don't force myself to sigh so they'll sigh.
Mm.
Yeah, no, it just sort of happens.
Okay.
Spontaneous.
Cool. I'm just
No, these are good questions.
totally excited
Very
about
good questions. Don't stop the questions. So, the headset, probably the most important thing. If you only had 5 minutes to work with somebody doing the greeting and the head, even what we're going to show, step 1 of the head, just A and A, would be, because as you're seeing here, you're dealing with all those parts of the brain that Liana told us about. So A and A is dealing with that frontal lobe and the base of the skull, where the brain stem. That's good. All these terms. A and A. So A in the back, and the A in the front is just at that forehead, where the forehead meets the crown. And you just hold that for 6 to 8 seconds. So if all you could do is the greeting in A and A, very powerful help. In fact, we have a 21-day challenge we send out to people. For 21 days, we have them just do the greeting on one another. And then the next 21 days, we have them just do the greeting in A&A. Doing the greeting in A&A, and then somebody doing it on you, takes a whole minute. So we're just trying to get people to take 1 minute out of their life. And what a change that would make for all of us. So that's step one, A&A. Now step two, you're looking for the X. And you'll notice there the X is, you pick a side, doesn't matter which side, and it's at the base of the skull on the side of that muscle. You can feel it on yourself, sort of an indentation there. That's going to be your hold point. Okay? As you're going to work and touch points on the other side of the head. Okay? And those are going to be those points 1 through 5. And they're going to all, points 1 through 3 are going to be on this ridge line formed by the side of the head and the crown. So while I'm holding that X, point 1 is straight from the corner of the eye on that ridge line. Point 2 is straight up from the front of the ear on the ridge line. Point 3 is straight up from the back of the ear on that ridge line. And point 4 now drops about 1/3 of the way down the ear and 1 inch or 2 back. You'll actually feel an indentation back there. That's point 4. And then point 5, you're at the base of the skull side of the muscle. You're opposite your hold point. And then it's always a fun little trick you do, because now that becomes your hold point while you work the other side. 1, straight up from the corner of the eye. 2, straight up from the front of the ear. 3, straight up from the back of the ear, all on that ridge line. 4, about 1/3 of the way down the ear and 1 inch or 2 back. 5, base of the skull, side of the muscle. So you see now we did those 2 hemispheres that you talked about. That was awesome. Yeah. Because now we're going to work those 2 hemispheres again. Because we're going to do matching fire. 1 and 1. 2 and 2. 3 and 3. 4 and 4, behind that ear. And 5 and 5. And now to make it all okay, this is one of the only times we actually take our whole hand and we just cover points 1, 2, and 3. Like it. Any questions?
So there's no telling what we're doing when we do that.
No. It's, when you hear things like what Liana talked about, it's incredible what's happening with biotech. Incredible. It's definitely making those connections. We definitely know it reduces stress, reduces pain, helps people relax. The feeling of relaxation pre and post session is off the board. It's just statistically, it's not happenstance that people feel more relaxed and less stressed. And when they finally, if we had enough money to do research and actually check brainwave patterns, I know it would be off the board. Just from that little bit. Without having to think about it. We don't even have to know about what Liana talks about. Just getting family members who work with other family members who have alcohol addiction, I think it would transform. Any questions? Because we're going to practice. Okay, all ready to practice? Yeah. Okay. 1 to 2 ladies go with Sherilyn, and the 2 guys will go with me.
Hey, that was even Steven.
Even Steven.